You're watching The Attorneys, a paid advertisement brought to you by the law firm of Hollis, Wright.
Car crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with The Attorneys of Hollis Wright.
Hello and welcome into The Attorneys. I'm Mark Franklin. On this show, we're peeling back the curtain on those whistleblower posters that you may have seen in hospital break rooms, that you may have seen in government offices. But we also want to hear from you right now. Go ahead and call an attorney at Hollis Wright for a free confidential call. It's 1-844-LAW-TALK. You can reach someone right now. Also, there's a QR code on the screen. You can scan that as well. That's another way to reach one of the attorneys at Hollis Wright. We want to get right to it. And Josh is here, of course, but joining us is Attorney Blake Milner. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's a privilege to be here.
Absolutely.
Blake, first of all, this is a really nuanced area of the law. Not everybody does whistleblower lawsuits, Federal Claims Act cases. In fact, there's probably only a handful of y'all in the city of Birmingham. How did you get into this area of the law?
So I agree with you completely. It is a very nuanced area, and I'd say it's even more nuanced on the side that I'm on, which is the relator side.
Yeah.
So the way I got into it, to answer your question, is I kind of already speak the language. I started my career as a state prosecutor, and until about 2 years ago, I worked for the U.S. Attorney's Office. And so I've been in the Department of Justice. I know a lot of those people. I consider them friends, and they haven't stopped accepting my phone calls, thankfully.
It's good. It's good.
But when I came into private practice, I got introduced to the area through cases that came in referrals, realized that I already kind of spoke that language. I was familiar with the statutes. I knew the people in the civil division that work on these cases, and it was just a natural fit. Particularly on the relator side, and I know we'll talk about it. There are some other folks in Birmingham that do a great job representing companies that are defendants in false claims cases, but I'm all naturally drawn to the relator or the plaintiff side of these kind of cases.
So now you can take this nuanced area of the law and you can plug it into your new firm, because you've now moved locations, new firm. Tell us a little bit about the new firm. Of course, I know one of your senior partners real well and love her. Tell us a little bit about your practice and kind of how all that has morphed over the last several months.
That's right. So recently, we have opened a Birmingham office of our law firm, Singleton Schreiber. The firm itself is based out of San Diego, and they are a plaintiff's firm that handles a broad range of cases, including environmental cases, personal injury cases, and my practice is going to be personal injury and these false claim whistleblower cases. And so Sarah Williams, who is our senior partner in Birmingham, is a well-known figure in Birmingham, and she's going to lead our office. And then I'll be handling the relator false claims cases, and we're excited about building that out. And we also have an attorney named Treasure Sutton, who's well known around Birmingham, that'll be handling personal injury cases.
Well, congratulations on the new practice, and I know we all wish you good luck. All right, let's talk just for a minute about FCA claims, Federal Claims Act cases. Kind of give us the 10,000-foot view of what those are and kind of where they apply and how you see them in practice.
So people use several terms to describe a false claims case. You'll hear false claims case, a key tam case, or a whistleblower case. We get the whistleblower from those posters that we see in break rooms that most people ignore. But those posters are under the False Claims Act, and they're telling employees and people that may have information regarding government contracts or potential for fraud in government contracts, what their rights are, what their responsibilities are in reporting that fraud. So if you take a big step back and look at the False Claim Act, it's a really straightforward mission. It was enacted in 1863, and the purpose of the False Claim Act was to curtail and beat down government fraud. That related a lot to military spending, and obviously it's still around. It was strengthened in 1986, but its mission is to rely upon people that see something and then say something. And once that is reported, there's a long process in how that happens. It hopefully holds people accountable who are stealing tax dollars at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Blake put it in a perfect perspective right there. It really is. It's fraud against the government that people are stealing tax dollars, and you have an opportunity to report that, and you can be compensated yourself. It's a really fascinating area of the law.
Can I say Blake has a great voice?
Yes.
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 Great
and
voice.
a face, too, for TV,
Well,
not just radio.
I have a face and voice for radio. That's what I've always said.
No, not
just
at
the
all.
opposite.
It is the opposite. But you've been saying that you're on the relator side. What exactly does that mean?
So the relator is what we more commonly refer to as the whistleblower. And it's a really interesting process in how it works because it's unique in how it functions. So the relator is simply the person that reports the wrongdoing. And the way that they do that is most often they contact an attorney when they notice that there is fraud happening either in healthcare, or you see this a lot in any business that has government contracts or maybe receives federal grants, and they notice that someone is committing fraud and they're causing money from the government to go either for a purpose that it wasn't supposed to go to, or oftentimes these are called reverse false claims. They retain money and don't send it back to the government when they were responsible to do that under a contract. And so the person that reports that is the relator, and they are able to bring a complaint on behalf of the United States, which is what makes it so unique and kind of different from a lot of civil practice. And once they bring that complaint, the Department of Justice then has the opportunity to intervene, to take over the case, or there are circumstances where the relator can prosecute the entire case to its conclusion, and then, like you said, they are then compensated for what they do on behalf of the government.
So really the relator is the whistleblower.
That's right.
And I know whistleblower has a negative context. The reality is it's the person that saw something and recognizes, hey, this is a fraud against the government, and is indicating, raising their hand and saying, hey, look, this needs to stop. Someone needs to at least investigate this. This is a question I have, are there prohibitions for the company that the whistleblower is at from discriminating against a whistleblower and potentially terminating that person for raising the potential for fraud?
Yes, and that is what those posters are most often referring to, is that employer is not allowed to retaliate against that individual. That is not to say retaliation does not happen. I would say it's very common for these cases to be referred to lawyers like me from employment lawyers who come get clients who have been retaliated against, either blatantly let go, or they create a hostile work environment, or there are a lot of pretextual things that happen. They suddenly say when a relator reports wrongdoing, well, your performance has slipped.
Right.
Or they transfer them to a position that they never intended to have in the company. And so unfortunately it happens, but that is against the law. They are prohibited from doing that.
Let me ask you this. What do you see most often? Like, let's put some meat on this. Like, what is the example that someone comes to you with of, hey, I'm seeing this? Is it in healthcare? Is it in government contracts, military contracts? What area of the law are you really seeing this in?
By far, healthcare is the biggest area. As a matter of fact, the Department of Justice releases statistics that on recovery itself. So they recovered, I believe, almost $2.5 billion last year that were a result of fraud, and about 60% of the vast range of cases this can represent, 60% were related to healthcare, which makes sense when we think about it. Medicare, Medicaid, there's a lot of government spending that should go for the intended purpose, and then there are unfortunately people that maybe file too many claims, maybe file claims for the wrong thing. And the benefit in healthcare is there's usually a lot of eyes on those claims as they go through. And so hopefully at some point, someone identifies the wrongdoing, reports it to the employer, maybe something doesn't happen and it continues, and then has to take that step and become a relator.
I know we're going to break, but how about this tease? I'm going to ask Blake when we get back a really important question, which is, what does he see with the new administration in the White House and the desire to cut superfluous spending, what impact he thinks that's going to have in this area of the law, because I'll guarantee he's got an opinion.
I bet he does. That is a good tease for what's on the other side of this break. I also want to remind you that you can right now reach one of the attorneys at Hollis Wright at 1-844-LAW-TALK, or you can simply scan the QR code. It's a free, confidential call to Hollis Wright Law Firm. someone is on the other side of that call. Stay with us. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Here's some good information from our firm to you. Hollis Wright recently launched the Law Talk podcast. With podcasts becoming so popular, this will be a simple way to provide our loyal viewers with more opportunities to access information about important legal topics and to learn more about our firm and how we can help you if the need ever arises. There are many ways to access the Law Talk podcast. You can simply scan the QR code on your screen. Also, episodes are always available on the Hollis Wright YouTube channel, as well as on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you consume your podcasts. Just search up Hollis Wright in the Law Talk podcast. Don't wait, take advantage and listen today. Thanks for watching The Attorneys, and we know you'll enjoy the Law Talk podcast.
The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show in 2011, my goal was to do what our firm does best. Help people answer questions related to real-world legal issues they have in their lives in a way that's not intimidating to talk with a lawyer. If the issue is important to you, it's equally important to us, and we're ready to talk with you at no cost.
Yeah, oftentimes people are confronting various legal issues in their lives that really run the gamut of a lot of different legal practice areas such as bankruptcy, criminal law, civil law such as personal injury, divorces, domestic relations. And to be able to have a show once a week that covers those practice areas and answers people's questions in those areas, that's really the main objective of the show.
We use the resources of the many lawyers at our law firm to create a plan that has a lasting impact for each person that calls or texts. And we also give back to the community at the same time. We are here to serve you, the viewer, each week on The Attorneys.
Addiction kills hope.
But at Bradford, it all changes here.
Experience the difference
that proven treatment can make.
Find recovery. Find community.
at Bradford.
You're watching The Attorneys, a paid advertisement brought to you by the law firm of Hollis Wright.
Welcome back to The Attorneys. You have a legal question? Go ahead and give one of the attorneys at Hollis Wright a call right now, 1-844-LAW-TALK, or scan that QR code on the bottom of the screen and you will reach someone at Hollis Wright. It is a free, confidential call. We are talking with Attorney Blake Milner, and such an interesting conversation, Josh, right now.
Yeah, and one of the things I teased on the way out that I want to talk about is, obviously, the new administration's come in. We're not taking any positions related to the new administration, the old administration, just simply raising the point that the new administration clearly has come in and said, we want to eliminate wasteful spending. Do you think that impacts false claims acts on a moving forward basis and increases the number of potential relator cases?
Absolutely. And it's a very practical reason why. We talked about a minute ago that the government has the opportunity to intervene in a case. Well, the practical political considerations are actually whether or not the Department of Justice is changing their criteria for what they want to intervene in. Mm-hmm. And so any administration that is prioritizing cutting out government spending waste or fraud, the intervention decision is going to be impacted. You would think a law that's been around since 1863 would have kind of a consistent, steady trajectory, and it's just not the case with the False Claims Act. Depending on the administration's priorities, it either goes up or down a little bit because they are complicated cases to bring and they can have an extended lifespan in how they come about.
Yep. I want to know about the Healthcare False Claims Act cases, if you can expound on those.
Sure. So they can take many different forms, but what you often see in any Healthcare False Claims Act is you're going to have a relator who identifies when there's been fraud in Medicaid or Medicare. And so the relator will give the details to an attorney, file the complaint, and it will be under seal for a period of time. And I would say those are much more likely to then result in both a false claims case as well as a federal criminal charge for the individuals that were committing that fraud. But unfortunately, there are people that have access to large amounts of federal money based upon how they phrase a claim in either Medicaid or Medicare. And the temptation exists to either overbill for a service that you're claiming under Medicaid or Medicare, or even at times make up patients so that you're getting paid federal money for people that simply don't exist or maybe died a long time ago.
All right, so take us through a typical example. You get a client in, and the client tells you that they think that they've got a potential relator case, and they think they can be a relator. You go ahead and present that claim under seal because the government has the ability to come in and evaluate whether or not they're going to step in and assist, right?
That's correct.
All right, if they don't, I want to ask this question first. If they don't, and you filed the case, do you handle, litigate the case, fund the case all the way through?
Yes. If the government does not intervene, then that is the relator's case.
Okay.
It's still on behalf of the United States. The recovery goes to the United States, but the actual prosecution of that case is handled by the relator along with the attorney.
So the case was initially filed under seal to give the government their opportunity. Once they make their judgment call, the under seal gets revoked, right? And it becomes an actual filing. Now let's assume the government gets involved.
Right.
Are they litigating the entire thing? Are they working with you hand in hand? Are you litigating it with it? How does that work?
If the government intervenes, they truly intervene.
Okay.
They handle the case from that point going forward. They litigate the case, but there's one caveat or exception. The relator is almost always an essential witness in that case. And so it's not like when the government intervenes, you lose the ability to have your attorney. It's equally important because being prepared to testify in one of those cases, provide information as a witness, is still essential to the government's case. It's just who's handling that litigation that primarily changes.
Still have the ability to get a fee either way in that? Okay.
And so very, very smart way the compensation was set up in that you bring the relator case, there is the intervention decision, and that decision is what impacts the fee.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if we can flush that out just a little bit. How does the DOJ decide that they are going to intervene in a case?
So when you file the complaint, you send a copy to the local U.S. Attorney's Office, and then you mail a copy to Main Justice in the Department of Justice in D.C. There is a Main Justice, a Department of Justice attorney that specializes in key TAMs across the country that will look at and evaluate that complaint, and then there will be a local Assistant United States Attorney who also looks at it. They then conduct an investigation while it's under seal. Keep in mind, pre-suit, the federal government has extensive investigatory powers. They can send out subpoenas because it involves fraud against the government. And so they conduct their investigation. They learn things that a relator often doesn't have access to. They often get the bigger picture of what was going on in the case, and then they have their own internal criteria, as well as they've got good people in the department that are very familiar with these things, and they try to treat these cases equally across a broad spectrum.
What's the timing of that investigation? Is it, obviously, it's probably going to be variable on different factors, but is it a pretty quick process?
So it is variable, but I'll give you a couple of examples.
Yeah.
If it is we'll call it straightforward, none of these cases are really straightforward, but let's say it's a federal grant fraud, and it was one fraud, and it came in, and it was almost immediately abused and discovered and reported. That can happen relatively quickly as far as the intervention. It can take maybe 6 months to a year for them to make the decision in that circumstance. We'll take healthcare fraud, or even better, defense contractor fraud. Those can be a broad and complex investigation because they may need to investigate both the contractor that's providing a military service and then the actual military agency it's going to. They may have to go out and look at whatever the equipment is that's impacted by the fraud, and that can take years to make that decision. Now, once it's reported, that obviously satisfies any kind of statute of limitations. And so at that point, the government's working to get all the details they can to make the decision.
People text all the time and say, do y'all do False Claims Act claims, whistleblower claims? And the answer is no, but I know a guy who does. Look, and that's tongue in cheek, but reality is, these are not cases you want to just dip your toe into. You got to know your role. I mean, if you file the complaint incorrectly, it could impact your ability to be a relator. There's so many things that go into this. You want a guy like Blake to be able to lead, guide, and direct you through that entire process.
Yeah, that's why he's here.
Yep.
And that's why you're there, to get the information that you need as we talk about false claims. Also want to remind you that on the bottom of your screen, you see some information that is scrolling there. We like to make sure you have information about the topic that we are discussing here on the show. That's where you find it there, along with, of course, the conversation that's going on. You still have time. All you have to do is scan that QR code to get in contact with one of the attorneys, a live call right now at Hollis Wright, or call 1-844-LAW-TALK, and it's a free confidential consultation. Make that call right now. We're going to continue the discussion when we come back right after this.
Thank you for watching The Attorneys each Sunday night, where we come to your living room to provide free legal advice in a confidential, off-air setting. Unfortunately, with the number of calls, texts, and emails that come in during the show, we can't always get to everything. But know this, Hollis Wright is open all week long. You call us at 844-LAW-TALK and we're going to answer your question for free. Thank you for watching The Attorneys, and we look forward to seeing you and talking to you soon.
If this place could talk, it wouldn't. It would sing and celebrate all of our stories of addiction recovery, victory, and community. This is Bradford Health Services. It all changes here.
You're watching The Attorneys, a paid advertisement brought to you by the law firm of Hollis Wright.
Welcome back. You are watching The Attorneys. Wanted to remind you, don't forget to follow Hollis Wright on all the social media platforms, on X, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. Get a lot of great information there. We're talking with Blake Milner, and just want to talk about, we had established what a relator was, as I didn't know at the time. Now I know what a relator is, but in these claims, does a relator recover from those?
Yes.
Get any recovery?
They do. And the recovery is based upon whether the government intervenes. And it's based upon what amount of damages the government is able to get back in that fraud. Because money was taken, they need to get that money back. But they also need to punish the conduct of whatever the false claim is based on. And so there are several different damages provisions in the false claim statute. It can be punished based upon the number of false claims, and it has a monetary amount. You think about the healthcare example we had. Each one of those false submissions that you then get money from is an individual claim. Mm-hmm. That dollar amount may be relatively low because it may have cost the government $500 to $800, but then that claim itself can be punished at a much higher rate. Other times, the actual financial fraud, the impact of that, is much higher. At that point, the relator is allowed to recover, or the government, is allowed to recover up to 3 times the amount of that damages. And so they get to a number that the government is due at the conclusion of the case. If the relator brought that case and the government did not intervene, they recover between 25 and 35% of the overall damage and what the United States recovers. If the government does intervene, then they still get a percentage of the recovery of the government. They get between 15 and 25%.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but it made me think. So let's assume the government doesn't intervene. Are you in general litigation? I mean, are you litigating a claim just like I would or you would on a personal injury claim or a wrongful death claim, where you're taking depositions and you're doing document production, all those things to try and establish the fraud?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And so the first thing you're going to get if the government doesn't intervene, or even if they do, is a motion to dismiss that complaint, which is why it's so important to make sure you get it right when you file that complaint. And then it is just general litigation. You're prosecuting a case.
Obviously, these cases are all filed in federal court.
That's right.
So you're dealing with federal judges, probably expedites the process a little bit.
It does.
Talk to me a little bit about, and I know this is a little off script, but talk to me a little bit about, have you seen circumstances where someone has brought a false claim, where they tried to they were concerned they were getting terminated, or they got terminated, they got frustrated, they tried to bring a claim that got filed and it turned out not to be accurate. I mean, does that happen? And are there teeth against that individual too?
Absolutely. And so anytime someone reports something falsely, they can open themselves up to other liability. And they can also hurt any other civil case they may have along with that false claims case. Another common thing that happens in the false claims cases is there are certain things that will stop you from either being a relator or recovering as a relator. If you are not the first person to report the harm, that may preclude you from being able to bring that case. Or if it's been reported in the media before. You can't take common knowledge that's out there and be a whistleblower. That makes sense. You also, and this is a tricky area of this field, you can't commit a crime to report a crime. And so there may be certain confidentiality provisions or statutes requiring confidentiality when you come into contact with federal money, and you have to be very careful when you look at the case to make sure you qualify as a relator and haven't done anything to preclude your recovery.
If you have a relationship with your business where you have a confidentiality agreement because of the work you're doing with the government, but you have fraud and you've identified it and you are eligible to be a relator, does that confidentiality, is it waived by being able to be a relator?
It is.
Okay.
That may sometimes be a complicated process.
Yeah.
You always want to have an attorney look at both the confidentiality provision and the facts of that case and make sure that you're not abusing or that confidentiality provision doesn't apply. But you can't have a confidentiality agreement to hide fraud. And so there is a way. You just want to make sure that you're very careful how you take that step.
You know, someone watching at home listening to the discussion this evening on what we're talking about, and they think that they may have witnessed fraud against the government. What's your advice to that person at home?
My biggest piece of advice is contact an attorney. Contact someone who speaks this language. But then my second comment would be that this is hard. It takes integrity to do this. And so, first of all, good on you for having that thought. And second of all, there are people that will support you. There are attorneys that handle these cases. They're on the relator side because they believe in what you're doing and want to support you. And so have someone there with you that can help you through this.
What are you looking for in cases when a case comes in? What kind of questions are you asking to make sure it's evaluated?
My number one question is, what is the information and where is the information?
Okay.
Those two things matter so much because when you file one of these complaints, you want to make sure that you have documents or very specific accounts of what happened, because what you really want to do, you're reporting fraud.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you give the Department of Justice what they need to conduct a good investigation.
Yeah. And there's a whole different side to this issue on the defense side, those that defend companies who are involved in this. And there are firms that do that are on the other side of what Blake sees. This has been a great show. I just think it's such a unique area of the law. It's not an area where someone wants to do it on their own. They need to get someone involved to be able to lead, guide, and direct them through the process. Mm-hmm. You're one of the guys.
Thank you very much.
Hey, good luck in the new practice,
Absolutely.
too.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
for being
me.
on.
Of course.
Yeah. And thank you for watching The Attorneys, where we make the law make sense. This is where you get your good information. And I always want to remind you that you can reach someone at Hollis Wright at 1-844-LAW-TALK. You can get a free confidential call. Just pick up the phone and give them a call. Thank you for watching. Make sure you watch us again next week for another edition of The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.